Well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our Lead Solutions Engineer. Today, Dion is going to be going over some tips and tricks, and he'll be here to answer your questions. So I've got two things to bring up quickly first. First is that this is a question-driven webinar, so please type your questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. The second is that this session will be recorded and is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be found at videos.alphasoftware.com. So let's begin. Hello, Dion, are you there? I think I put you on mute. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go. Hey, how's it going, Dave? Am I coming through okay?
You are coming through. Let me go ahead and make it a presenter.
Excellent. And there we go. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to visit with us this week. We have some interesting kind of tips and tricks, things that I've been working with recently, some new features and other capabilities that we'll be doing. Actually, one had a question from a person came in, and that's we like to always remind you, you can always send questions to guides, that's GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. We highly recommend you send those in. It allows us to kind of prepare, get information together, and so we can give you a great presentation. And if we do come across a question, which I know a lot of questions will be put into the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel today, we will attempt to answer those today, so get them in. If not, we can always take them offline and follow up with you and make sure those get answered. So very exciting, lots of really cool stuff continue to be coming down the road with Alpha. We're very excited about the latest release, huge amount of capability in there, and the team is already hard at work at the next release, and even better capabilities are coming down the road, and we're starting to do some planning for demonstrations and education sessions. Just to let you know, we had an excellent certification training event last week. It had to do with web services, specifically, oops, that's not web services. Oh, let me go up, open it real quick. There we go. We'll bring that one up here. So we went over it, and I just want to kind of give everybody an idea that what we're starting to do now is beyond just the weekly Q&As, which are, I think, are helpful, give people pointers and kind of there. We're going to be focusing, doing more deep dives, and also focusing on creating certification training that will allow you to really master different solutions. So our first one was held last week, organized by David, and it was all about web services, specifically the ability to consume web services using both SOAP and REST APIs. And it was a 2-hour session, included some tests and other pieces there, and we felt it went very well, and we're improving and adding more capabilities to it. We have other certification program training coming down the road, and one of the exciting things, and Dave can talk to it a little bit more about the program, but we want to really encourage people to gain, especially Alpha developers who are maybe providing Alpha development services to third parties. It's really going to help you differentiate yourself from someone who just picks up Alpha and starts using it. We like lots of people using it, but we also want to be able to allow our end clients, the people who actually need these solutions, to identify people who have been trained and certified that understand really how best to use the Alpha technology. So Dave, can you add a little bit more flavor of the goals and focus of the certification program?
Well, I think you summed it up quite nicely. The point is that we will be tackling specific areas, often areas that people have trouble with, and really just giving you the tools that you need. As Dion said, certification does come with a badge, which is unique to you. You can put it on your LinkedIn site or on your resume or whatever you like on your website. And we will be having, it looked like 3 more in 2017. There might actually be 4 more in 2017. And Dion, I'm going to talk to you about that after. But, yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah, but they seem to be going over well. Our last one, as you said, was last week. We're still sort of putting it together. It wasn't quite as polished as it will be in the future sessions. But we'll let you know more about that. If you do have specific questions or you want some more information, just go ahead and send an email to guides@alphasoftware.com, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you and explain what it's all about.
It was excellent, and it was very fun to put together, and we had some really good participants, and really I think gave people a good basis for dive into web services, which is a critical aspect because the world is moving towards more and more web services. So I wanted to give you a heads up of what we've been working on. We have other ones coming up as we go forward.
I kind of just want to clarify one thing. In terms of polish, Dion's presentation, of course, was fantastic. It was all the websites and the registration links and getting everything to work, and that's the part that I'm working on. It's brand new to me, but it'll be very smooth in the upcoming weeks. So, but the content is fantastic.
Yeah, and it was a live presentation, but what we do is we are recording these. We're going to be reusing the content to provide online training and other certification programs because we know everybody has very busy schedules, and sometimes in the middle of the week you just can't carve out 2-3 hours of time. So we want to really provide you those services. So we're excited about it. It's really, for me, I get excited because I love doing the weekly demos and the other pieces, and we get great questions and other pieces, but you know, sometimes you just can't do justice to a topic in 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And this allowed me to kind of go into a lower level of detail to spend a little bit more time, take more questions, and I really personally I found it gratifying, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody who participated, gave us feedback, got engaged, asked questions. We really enjoyed that, and this is just the start of a lot of really great training that you're going to be able to tackle in there. Our challenge is the development team is producing so many cool stuff so quickly, we got to stay on top of it, and that's always a fun challenge there. Okay, so today what I want to do is do a few quick little tips and tricks of things I've found that are really helpful for me, and also more importantly is give you time to go to the GoToWebinar control panel and type in those questions there. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So tips and tricks. The first one is finding those files. I found a magic button. It's been there forever and a day, but I found it, and it's amazing how much time this little magic button has helped me. So I'm going to go into the alpha development environment, get rid of this here, go in there. So I'm in the alpha development environment. People who are new, I'm at the web projects control panel. We have all our different files. This is a demo, so I've got tons and tons of files, but you have those there. But you'll notice we have a tab, like a mini icon tab bar up there with some really critical ones. Mainly we use this for publishing, getting access to the web security and project properties, but you're going to notice one right here. It looks like an empty folder, or actually a manila folder that's been opened. And the tip and trick is, you know, often we're working with these inside the system, but sometimes you need to go to the file system. So I go into my file system, I go to alpha, I find the project I want to go to, and I've got all my different projects, go into there, web projects, always kind of pain. If I'm in a specific project, let's say this one's demonstration, and I click this little button here, boom, it opens alpha, a file browser right into the default.web project folder for a specific project. And here are my different controls. So and I can sort them in there. It's a little thing, it's a nit, but you know, sometimes you want to go grab that control to copy it, put it into a different format, or send it to someone, or do something like that. And before I would spend, you know, 30-40 seconds going to the web browser, or the web file browser, finding where that is, digging into it, and I realized, oh, you know, if I click this, I'm right there. And what's really cool is that you'll notice that it keeps track of when things are modified. So when I do click this, I go to the date modified, and boom, there is my most recent modification in the same order. Now remember, there's a whole bunch of secondary files that are in there, so you want to look for the particular file type, but you'll see it's differentiated by this little alpha icon there and those pieces here. But I got to tell you, in the last couple weeks, it saved me, you know, just a little bit here, a little bit there when I had to dive in and do there. It's kind of stupid, but you know, the little things sometimes do add up in terms there. While I'm on this topic, I would like to talk a little bit about how I name my my files in alpha. And it's kind of a secondary topic, but the idea is that I always put, like, basically this one's a little different because it's all over the place because I'm doing demos and the other pieces here, but I usually put like the function that I'm doing underscore and then either UX for a UX component Or for a grid, and I didn't even, yep, there you go, I put underscore grid. So I actually embed into the name. Now, when I'm inside the development environment, I can see what type of item there is in this column right here. So it adds not a whole lot of benefit here, but sometimes when I'm looking, some things we name pretty clear, like kind of the similar, and I'll be able to differentiate quickly. Where it really pays off is when you're here in the file system, because when Alpha saves things, it saves it as a A5W CMP or Alpha 5 web component product or file. And it does not distinguish in the file system whether it's a grid or UX. So by adding the term underscore UX or underscore grid, where's an example of a good grid? There's a grid right there. You'll notice I made, like for instance, this one's named the same. I have a UX and a grid. If I look in here, I've got, the Firelight in here. Where is that? Somewhere. Oh, right there. When I'm in the file system, if I need to see the different ones, if it was it basically allows me to quickly identify which one's my UX, which one's my grid, so I can grab it there. So it's recommended. Don't have to do it. It's up to you. You can use any file system. You can use any way you want to do it. But by adding that underscore UX underscore grid, it just makes it easier when you're sitting and looking things on the file system to find what you're looking for from there. So again, the magic little button is right here. Open the web project folder. Takes you right to that project folder with all of your components and grids and A5W pages and everything involved there, including all my images and other things that I have in there. So it's really simple to bring things into it from that standpoint there. So that's the first tip for this week, is find those files. Next one is the semicircular number display. This is a newer with latest release, but it's one I'm starting to use a lot. It is a really cool, easy to use, and very pretty control. So as we've talked about a couple weeks ago, we've actually added in a whole set of what's called JavaScript charting components. And that brought in a whole bunch of charting capabilities into the tool. During that time frame, we're picking out specific things that are used over and over again, and one of those is the semicircular number display. So this is actually a part of the JavaScript charting functionality, but it's its own little control, and I'm going to show you how to add it to a situation there. So the really cool things about this is that it looks fabulous. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a little display I've already created. I've already got it displayed in there, so I'm going to do a live preview so we can see it within the running web browser. So give it a moment. You'll see that we now have a nice little display, and again, it's on webinar and all the other stuff. So I've got it displayed, and it's showing the percentage that goes there. So it's very easy to add these to your environment, and the nice thing is that they're great for KPI, or key performance indicators. So dashboards give people an indication of where they are in terms of finishing a job, other pieces here. Now where you find that is that it's a data control, meaning it can be data bound. So you go to the data controls, go to more, and then inside the more, I mean, we've been getting so many controls, we got to keep adding them to these pieces here. It's called SemiCircularNumberDisplay. And I go ahead and add that to it. I'll call it test 2. I'll click OK. And there's test 2. I can give it a default value, say 75. I'm going to make it numeric here. And then I can go into the control properties right here, and this allows me, and I did that kind of quick, but I select the semicircular, I go over here to control product. This is where I can update things. Like I can say, the minimum is actually from 10 to 100 to 200, depending on your scenario. The color type is static. Well, you could make that dynamic in the color of it. Yes, I would like to show the number in the center of it here, and then it gives you some options on how to do that pieces there. So now that I've done that, go to my working preview, and now I've got 2 of them. A little big, but I could adjust that there. I could go in here now and said, let's put them side by side, and now I've got this nice looking. So as you can see, I can quickly put together KPIs that show, and it goes from 10 to 200, and based on the number, it automatically fills in how much is done. And again, I can change these colors to like make this, for instance, which is really cool. I can make this red when it's here, yellow when the number's here, and then green and when there. So you can actually create very sophisticated kind of indicators to show people what, how things are going within their business. And as you can see, they're simple. And what's really nice about them is they are data-bound controls. So you can actually bind this to data in your database, so you don't even have to write any code to do that. You can also bind these to data series. They do work fine offline. So if you're building a mobile solution offline and you want to be able to set the values of that based on the information of the data. Let's say you had a person who is a field technician, and in the morning they have 10 work orders they need to fulfill. Well, on your front page you can show how many of those have been completed, and as they complete the items they can look at that data in the list and say, oh yeah, they're up to 4, and then update that. So it really allows you to add some really cool eye candy and some other pieces. For management, they really love these because you can create a whole series of KPIs or key performance indicators where someone within a few moments can glance at a web-based dashboard and see, hey, am I on track? Is my business operating the way it is? And so it's a really handy item for a dashboard. So again, it's called the SemiCircularNumberDisplay. You can find that in the Data Controls More semicircle number display. You add them to your field. It looks like any other things. You can have a default value. They could be data bound to data. Let's say you're connecting this to a view or something like that. And then also, most importantly right here, is that you're able to go over here to the control properties, and you can have, for instance, you can set all these, and all these parameters can also be set on the fly. So that's really nice to create more like genericized KPIs that, you don't have to create a circular control for every one. You can on the fly change, modify, and also you can animate it, which is kind of cool. Let me do an animate and show you the animation. It's kind of fun to see that too. If you add these to your program or to your project, people are really going to dig them. It's going to make them look really pretty sharp there. So you'll see as it loads up. It was really fast there, but you'll notice that it animated it and it kind of grew it there. So it's almost like you're looking at your car dashboard kind of pieces there. So that's there. Now there's one other feature that was added in the most recent release. One I really like, and one that was interesting, was kind of hard to do before, which was surprising, but it's a simple container that allows you to align things. Now, we've always had the ability to go in, and I'm going to go ahead and open up something a little different than my alignment container right here. We've always had the ability to go in and put in containers. So what containers are is really, they're just divs and spans. They're invisible controls that allow you to structure it. So for instance, you know what, let me do this real quick to make it simple. I'm going to create a new UX component that's data bound, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it blank. I'm not going to select one of our templates here, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to controls, add a new control. You'll notice there's a populate list from table. By the way, if you're in here and you see this format, you're in the create a single new control. If you go to new multiple, it gives you these other options, which are really nice down here. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to say connect to my database, and I'm going to connect to a table here. Let's say it's customers, and I'm going to grab, and I'm going to say go ahead, and it auto-generates a UX for me and data binds. Really nice little feature built into Alpha to make things very quick to produce user interfaces. So now you'll see that right here I've got a user interface. I can do a working preview right now, and you'll see I've got a fully running user interface. We have our text boxes, we have our buttons, and then I have our navigation to be able to navigate. And you'll notice as I do that, it can navigate through the records right here. And then for us to, we've always had the ability to say, okay, I'm going to take this group of items. Let's say it's these right here, and I'm going to add a container in there with no type, and then I'm going to go ahead and add another container, and I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to get rid of the carriage return right there. So I want to go like that. Now I can start lining up my items on the screen so they use the screen more effectively instead of everything. And so those have been there for a long time. One of the very first sort of user interface elements there. But one thing containers actually were kind of hard for is get things lined up properly within a container. So what we've added is a new type of container. And I'm going to go over here. And it's called the alignment container. So let me go ahead and go take these right here. And I'm going to delete this to start out. Let me show you what this looks like. So I have a series of 3 buttons, and they just render one after another because really they're on the screen. Each one has a little carriage return that puts it on the next page. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those 3 buttons, and I'm going to go to containers, and I'm going to click on container. And we started out with a simple container, but now we have a lot of different ones, you know, panel headers, footers, panel overlays, windows, etc. There's lots of documentation, including things like editor sets and headers. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to add a special type of container called a alignment container. And we can actually click here and it'll explain the different type of containers, what they do when there. Now I click OK, I'm going to insert it here. And I'm going to go ahead and run my little user interface, and you'll see nothing's changed. But you'll notice this alignment container right here, it is currently aligned to be left. So let's say I change that to be centered. Now I can go in and do a working preview. Now you'll notice that I have these containers right here, are everything within it, within that container is being aligned to the middle. And then if I want to, I can go ahead and do it to the right and do a working preview. And there they are on the right. So very simple, easy to use, and handle. So it's about when you want to align controllers, because after a while you'll have a bunch of different controls and you want to do some pretty interesting stuff. So I'm going to make this back to be center. So I'm going to do alignment of center. So everything's aligned in the center. The buttons themselves work however you want. I mean, this is just, and you'll notice there's no visibility on this because it's a hidden control just to do those pieces. But I'm going to take this one right here, and I'm going to add another alignment container in here. And I'm going to go ahead and do, where's alignment right there? And I'm going to do an insert around. And I'm going to make this one left. So now let's do a working preview. Check it out. Notice what's going on here. That I've got all of these are aligned centrally into it, but this particular area is left. So you can start creating very sophisticated interfaces that are available to do this. So for instance, I can take this alignment container and say I want it to be 50% of the width of the screen. And I'll go ahead and do a working preview. And now notice it's taking up 50% in those pieces here. Oh, it didn't show that. Must have done it wrong. Oh, I have to do another container within that one there. But what it allows you to do is do these fine level control, fine granular alignment of controls. And with the previous container, it's a little tough to get everything to work exactly the way you want. The new alignment container is really easy. It's lightweight. It doesn't add any kind of weight to your form there. And it allows you to have a lot of fun in terms of exactly how you want to align these people. And one thing that is nice too is that these are all responsive in nature. So I'm going to go ahead and run this alignment by clicking here. I'm running it in my web browser. So it's going to open up my web browser. It takes a moment here. So now I've got my alignment containers and everything else. So you should see a very similar looking structure. And again, always takes a little more time in a demo. Okay, but I can go ahead and do this, and I'll go ahead and take this. Notice how it's automatically resizing down to the level it can do, all those pieces there. So the alignment container is responsive, so it's going to maintain those kind of relationship with the different items. But you notice all the basic capabilities are handled by the system within that. So that's called the alignment container. You can find that by going into container, alignment, and adding it there. If you have questions about how it works, there's some great videos online, and also it shows a little bit here, and you can also watch some video demonstration of the different control types. There's many being added to give you more control of your interface development. So check that out. I think you're going to find it's going to make your life easier to get your user interface to be looking exactly what you want. So quick recap. make your life easy, you got to find those files. Just click this little button right here. You'll open up the Windows file browser, pointed to the right directory. The new SemiCircularNumberDisplay, highly recommend you use it for any kind of KPIs. Remember, the important thing is that it's all JavaScript charting, so it works great both on a connected environment but also a mobile disconnected. It's responsive in nature, and also it gives you a huge amount of control over animation, color schemes, etc., so you can make some very compelling looking interfaces. And last but not least, to line those things up properly, look at using the alignment container. It really lets you get your user interface to position itself right on the screen exactly where you want it. So with that, I'll hand it back to Dave, and that's our tips and tricks for the week.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. So a couple of questions have come in, but we're probably going to have time for more. So if you do have questions, please type them into the questions box. So our first question is, can you show a way or an easy way to add a record to a table that's used in a lookup field? And here's the scenario. They are entering in some data. They come to a lookup field and they say, oh, you know what? The thing that I want isn't in this lookup field. I'd like to be able to add it to the lookup field so that I can do it later.
Yes.
For future records.
And I'll probably send there's a great video on how to do this, but let me give you an example of how that works here. So I'm going to create a new UX and a lookup field. Okay, so UX here. Yep. Oh, lookup field or a drop down. I wonder if you can do a refresh on a lookup field. Let me go ahead and just take a look at this. I know how to do it with a drop down. I've done it before with that, but let me go ahead and see. So the idea, with a little background for folks there, is that I can create a text box here, and let's call it text to enter. Okay. So this text box is, and if I just run it, it's just a text box. No big deal. Enter in any day there. But Alpha has a really cool feature that allows me to turn this into what's called a lookup field, or add a lookup capability to this. So let's go to this text to enter. I'm going to scroll down here till I get to almost the bottom, and you'll notice that there's a command here called lookup. So I'll go click lookup here. When I do that, it opens up some other options that are available. Lookup type and the definition. So I'm going to start out with, and there's 3 lookup types: grid component, auto suggest, and edit combo. I'll do auto suggest since that's the most one that's used most of the time there. So the idea is when I start typing stuff into this field, I want it to look that information up and return information to me. So I'm going to go ahead and do the lookup definition. It could be a set of static lambs, so I could put in static information. It could be dynamic or it could be variable, and I'll come back and talk about that one a little bit more there. So let's just focus on dynamic for right now. So that the connection string, I'm going to go ahead and select the connection string. Okay, and I'm going to go to the table is, let's say it's employees. And actually I'm going to go to customers since I know the customers. I'm going to go to the field name to search. So this is going to say, okay, in customers, what is the field name I'm going to search on to do my lookup? So let's say it's customer ID. And then I can then return either customer ID or another field. I'll just leave it alone there. I can force the person to allow them to enter in new data or select it from there, and a whole bunch of filtration capabilities that are available within that. So now when I go in here, when I start typing stuff, you'll notice that it automatically starts putting, it's looked up in that other database field, and it's very fast, and you'll see that it's allowing me to start typing, and I can go, okay, Annotar, select it from there. B, L, let's say it's, and you'll notice as I type letters, it's automatically doing there. So lookup fields are really nice for quick data entry. If you have a data entry situation where people are like re-entering things over and over again, it's really powerful there. Okay, now the issue becomes, now that I've set this up, they want to be able to add new values to this lookup field right here. And if I'm not mistaken, the lookup definition is created when I launch this UX, meaning that when I launch this, it sets there. So if I had a drop-down field, there's actually a built-in function that allows you to refresh a drop-down field to say updated. So I might have to look exactly how you would refresh this, but I did want to highlight something that's important, is that lookup definition right now, by the way, I've set it to be dynamic. So what it's doing is it's looking at a database table. Now, if I add records or delete records from that database table, the next time I enter this UX, that lookup field is going to be automatically using the most current data in that database table. The question becomes, if you're closing the UX and reopening it, it's going to refresh that lookup. It's going to grab the data from the backend database and update it each time. So that kind of takes care of the problem for you right there. But if it's a situation where I'm on this data entry form and I want to go ahead and add on the fly some lookup data in the lookup table, how do I do that? Now, the way I would suggest is, instead of using dynamic here, we can use a variable. And a variable is very cool, because a variable allows you to use a session variable to populate the lookup values for this here. You can also use what are called RTC variables, which are kind of live at the UX level. When you launch the UX, you can load those from there. And so there's other pieces. By the way, static also has a cool function right now. You can actually, can you do static? No, on this one, it's dynamic. Just to let you know, so static is a static. Dynamic, you can also, by the way, call an Xbasic function. So you're not just limited to alpha DAO. You can actually call an Xbasic function to look these things up there. The question becomes, how do I refresh this? And I'm going to have to apologize and find out, how would you refresh a lookup field without closing and reopening the UX? I don't know how to do that. Now, if you are kind of opening these UXs to edit things, every time you open it, it's going to refresh that data. So again, if that's your scenario, then it basically fixes it itself. If it's a situation where you want to have like a button on here, let me go ahead and add another button here. And I go refresh, and when I click this button, then it refreshes the values of those. We'd have to do a little more research on that to find out. My guess is I think this gets loaded when the UX is initialized. I do know with drop-down boxes, there is a command in Alpha, JavaScript command, that says go ahead and refresh this drop-down box and repopulate it on the fly, which is really powerful for that. But in the case of this, I'd have to go in and do a little research and find that. I'm sorry I don't have a full answer for you today. But for folks that are new, these lookups are really nice, because again, you go in here, you can just start typing, you know, and it's like fast. And it's all, and what it does is it loads it into the local web browser. So any kind of subsequent, you'll notice it's really going super fast, and you're not going to see huge delays on how to do that. I just don't know how to do it like in terms of on the fly. I am seeing, notice how when I text, it is doing you'll notice there's like a little circle thing. So it's possible that it's doing a re-lookup of the database right on the fly, but we'd have to do an experiment to test that out. And again, apologize, I don't have a pat answer on that, but we'll find out. So very important, let Dave know who it is, or email us at guides@alphasoftware.com.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so here is a question, a REST question. Oh, and it's good because it's technical. I like these kind. So this person doesn't actually want to use a component. They're just using an A5W page. So
okay,
we're talking about Xbasic here, basically.
Yeah.
And what they want is just to connect to a REST point. Like, let's say it's www.example.com/data/customers.json $ID equals blah, you know, sort of generic thing.
Okay.
And they want to then take what comes back and put it into a session variable.
Ah, okay.
What would be the sort of general, what are some of the functions and stuff that you would use to do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. And I actually, based on our last week's, let me go ahead and open this up, let people know.
Yeah.
Bear with me as I open up my browser here. There, in our certification, I found a really cool kind of neat little website which has a fake API that allows you to kind of, you don't have to go write a web API, so you can rec-res. Okay, it's called recres.in, reqres.in. And eventually, after it gets off the sign-up page, workflowy, love that tool, it comes to here. And basically, this is just a free-to-use, cool little fake API. So you'll notice in here, this is the, when I click Get, you'll notice when I run one of these things, it's actually running a web API and putting the result right here. So in this case, it's recrest.in/API/users2. And so that's running a web API call and getting the information back. So let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is create an A5W page that calls that, and then I'll show it on the screen, but then I'll also put it into a session variable. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into A5W pages, click new. Actually, let's see, yeah, I'll click new. Come on. And I don't know if I can the G, but let me go ahead and do that. Come on. Of course. There we go. I don't know why I went there. Okay, so this is an A5W page, and I'm going to go ahead and in this A5W page, I'm going to put a little piece of Xbasic that says hello, spits out hello there. And so that's it. You'll see that there's a little opening tag and closing tag, and when I do a live preview, it just spits out that tag. It's very simple kind of scripting kind of capability there. So that's how you put that. So what we want to do is something a little more sophisticated, meaning that when that script runs, excuse me, I want it to run this recrest and gets that information there. So let's see if it works on here. Can I get access? Yes. All right. I can use the curl command Xbasic. So the idea behind it is that when this runs, the first thing I want my Xbasic script to do is to run off, call that that web service and return the information. Now you could handcraft this, but Alpha says, hey, let's make it easy for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and in here, I'm going to go Genie's curl command to Xbasic. Okay. Now what curl is, this we went over in extensive detail last week, is basically a command line way to call web services or web pages, etc. So I can, and there's a lot of documentation online. The cool thing is Alpha includes it as part of our installation, so it's already on your system and you can run it from there. But I'm just going to go ahead and write this, like, so if I went curl http :// what this does would be run off to Google, grab the contents of that web page, and then show it in there. But I'm going to do something a little interesting. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to paste that right here. And I'm going to go back here, and the actual command I want is right there. Okay, and I've got an extra one there. So that is, so if you do curl this, then what's going to do is it's going to call the website and do that. Now, you could write your own scripts and stuff like that, but what's cool is once I've got this here, I can click Generate Xbasic, and it's going to turn that curl command into this set of Xbasic. So we actually write the code for you. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code to the clipboard, and I've gone ahead and, oh, it's pasted it in there for me. So now I click OK. What's going to happen is I put inside there that code. So it's going to call this here. Now what's going on here is when it writes the sample, it's saying show var, but what I'm going to actually do is go message, and I'll comment that out, or let's copy this, and I'll go like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and this is in case of errors, it's going to spit out the errors. So now what's going to happen is it's going to run this page, it's going to run this script. This is basically building a command to go call that. So I'll save that, and we'll call it call. Okay, and let's go ahead and do a live preview, and let's see what happens. There you go. Check it out. Notice that if I go back to here, this is data, ID, etc. Here you'll notice that ID, first name, last name, and avatar, etc. So, and you'll notice it said headers and content. So really what I want to do here is I'm just going to spit out just the contents, because that's what gets returned from there. So I'll just go ahead and put it in here, save that, and then I'll go ahead and do a live preview. By the way, and you'll notice it's just bringing us back. Here's the data from that standpoint here. Now, what I can do is I could take that contents and I can go session.webservicecall.result is equal to contents, and boom, this JSON is now inside that session variable, and now it's available wherever I need to use it. I just shove it right in the session variable and I'm done. So an example of that is, and we talk a lot more about in the web certification, I can actually do something pretty cool. So you'll notice that it's coming back as JSON, and JSON's great. It's easy to read, it's helpful, etc. But the issue is, how do I manipulate that? I want to just extract, let's say, their last name and show their last name. Now with Alpha, we have a lot of text manipulation, so you could do basically write a little script that will extract that information out. No problem, pretty straightforward. You would just look for a pattern, but you know, that's still a lot of work, and I'm like, I don't want to do that much work, so I'm going to do something a little more interesting here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take contents right here, and I want to turn that into what's called a pointer variable. And again, our certification goes in there. So I'm going to go down here, I'm going to go dim results pointer as P. And what a P variable is, think of it as a pointer variable. It's a multi-item array variable kind of scenario. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go result pointer is equal to JSON underscore parse, and then I'm going to give it contents. Okay, so what it's doing here is, and I'm going to highlight this out, the contents is this JSON right here, and then we're converting it into a pointer. And now what I can do is, with that results pointer, I can spit out the data. And so let's go ahead and do this. To see how this works, let's put a debug in here and run this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a live preview here. So you'll notice that it's put in the information. By the way, notice this too right here. If you wanted something different, you could actually pass it in. But so it's done. It's run our web service call. It's going to get our contents, so we can see our contents is that there. And then what I did is I'm about to take the contents and turn it into a results pointer. So I'm going to step through now, boom, let's look at the results pointer. So this is kind of cool. You can see what it's done is that it's now put it into a structure where I can go in and say, oh, you know what? It's results pointer dot data dot last name. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that variable name out, and I can go ahead and look at this if I wanted the person's avatar, etc. Pretty fun stuff there. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here. I'm going to go back to my source here, and I'm going to put the little question mark. That means spit this out, last name plus results there, plus also, you know, the thing I want to do is go session dot last name is equal to, I'm going to do it so it's consistent, name is equal to there. So what I've done is that I'm going to grab just that last name value. So as you can see, I didn't have to write like 5 or 10 lines of code to do like a substring extraction from my JSON. I can convert my JSON into a pointer, look at it, and then be able to refer things to it. So I can now go ahead and run this. I'll get rid of my debug here, and we'll do a live preview. There's last name, there's Bluth. Then if I want to do something a little more interesting, I could sit there and say plus, oops, there's BR. So it's going to put in a break, and then I'm going to go question mark, first name plus results pointer dot data dot first underscore name. So let's take a look at that. Notice now we have first name, and also we can get even really cool. Let's see if this works. I'll see how. And by the way, I could also put that first name into a results session variable there, but also let's go ahead and do this. And now we're going to get real fancy. So I need to do something like this. Image tag, or tag. Okay, it's the HTML image tag. By the way, if you ever open up, I don't like W3 schools because have you ever opened them up and it takes like forever because they download like 1,000 ads or something? I found that it's nice, but it doesn't there. So an example.
I still like W3 schools though.
I do. I mean, it's good there. It's a little easier to read. But if you ever watch how long this thing keeps going when you open up, I'm gonna just, let's do it. Okay, I'm just gonna go there.
All
You'll
right.
see that it's like downloading like
Oh, yeah.
1,000 things. Like,
Yeah.
see, it's still going,
It's
still
installing,
going,
it's installing
still going.
Stuxnet, I think.
It's basically grabbing my whole hard drive, and I think, look at that. And so it's like, for gosh sake, I'm just going to grab this, put it in here. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say question, image, avatar, and plus, okay, source equals, oh, I hate when that does that there. Get rid of all this stuff. Can you use single quotes in there? Does this work?
Yes, you can. And that's
okay, good. That's always kind of a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Is equal to plus, like watching there, plus. I think that will work. Okay, and this is avatar. And just to look at the signature comes back, it's avatar. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the avatar and putting it inside an image tag. And if this works, we should see, check it out. Wow, wow, that's a miracle. It worked the first time. So what I did, this cool little trick is all I did was, this is the data value that comes back, and that is a URL. They hosted just some sample images up on AWS. And so in my code, all I do is I can get that URL by just using this, and then I just created like the little HTML to actually say display that as its source. Because if I had just done it with just this, let's go ahead and do this. Let's copy this out. If I just done this, you would see that all it's going to do is spit out, oh, I didn't like that even. Let's see. See, it just spits out the URL. But now when I actually use the image tag and build up image before it, the actual URL and that, then we get this. And again, what's cool is that now I could put that, session.avatar is equal to, if I could type, and now that's available anywhere else in my application. So bottom line is I use the curl to Xbasic to actually create my Xbasic here. Then it's going to give me back my contents, which is what's inside that response right here. I could just go ahead and grab that contents, put it into a session variable, have available. But in my case, what I do is I'm going to actually extract the data out by using a trick where I parse that JSON into a pointer variable, and then it's much easier for me to grab individual pieces of data out there because Alpha has done all the work of kind of organizing it to make it referenceable. And what's nice is this will work not only for like a single thing, but if I had an array of objects, this works just as well, meaning that I could have an array of people, and then I would have, instead of a results pointer as single, I could put in what's called an array of pointers, so it could bring back like 5 employees, and then I just would say, okay, employee 1 is 1, 2, etc. from there. And that's the idea of using an array. And again, our stuff always handles. And what's great is Alpha continues to improve those functions to make it more easy to manipulate and grab data from JSON, because we want you to write as little code as humanly possible, and these little tricks here. So I know we kind of had a fair amount of code here. We usually don't do that on most of our sessions here, but for someone who wants to actually go into an A5W page, run a little piece of Alpha 5 Xbasic, notice that the 90% of this was written by the system using that. And again, the way I got to that is you click anywhere on the white space, like when you're doing, like, see in this case, notice I'm in the A5W, but if I go down here And let's say I want to put another piece. I can go and insert Xbasic, and you go to Genie's curl command to Xbasic. This will also work if you want to. You can actually go in, create a new script using the Xbasic editor, and then do it here, create that curl command to Xbasic, get the code working in here, and then just copy that code and paste that into a section of Xbasic code on your A5W page. I highly recommend that. That way you kind of get it working, and then you can include it in your pages. But then the last step was just took whatever results and just said session dot. By the way, the new way to do that, by the way, let me go ahead and do this here. Context. There you go. Session variables, we've always used session variables, but the recommended way to do it now is there's a way to set what are called contexts, which they play better like with IIS. I'll forget which one those are, but you can actually set context variables, which then if you're going to do like a server farm or stuff like that. But for easy, simple, just put it into session and you're good to go. So a little bit of a long-winded message, kind of dove into a little bit of web services, but hopefully that gives you enough information to get you dangerous on that.
Excellent. And just as a quick follow-up, there's no reason that you couldn't take that Xbasic and either wrap it into a class or create a function out of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's how I would do it, because then you could unit test it, get it working perfectly, and then in here you'll have like 3 lines of code. It won't, and if you have to modify it, you modify it in one place. Let's say you find an error. Well, if you had 3 or 4 different places you were doing stuff like this, you wouldn't have to go hunt them down. It really is good programming practice to do that.
Excellent. So we had a question that came in, which went around the integer value control in the UX, and I went to do some research on it and found that that page was under construction in the documentation. So we have our documentation person here today, and she's gone and actually researched it and found out what the answer is, and I'm going to put her on now.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So hang on. Sarah, I'm going to make you the presenter. Okay. Sarah, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, and I can see your screen. So the question is, how do you change the size of an integer control? And it looks like we even came across a bug. Not that we come across them often, but in here.
Oh, yeah. So an integer value control, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is one of those controls you find in the data controls more box.
Here, let me go ahead and show you, like if I'm on a UX here and I go to data controls.
Oh, we're looking at Sarah's.
Oh, we're looking at my screen.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Oh, never mind. I was looking at I live in my own little world.
Try to keep up. Try to keep up.
All right.
I know she's on the create a single new control. Never happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna create single new control. It's some of you might be tempted to change this height, width, or check that fill container. That won't change anything, and I'll send a report in about that. But really, if you want to change the size, and we'll look at live preview here real quick. This is the control. It doesn't look great here because my style sheet's a little bit messed up. But you click these buttons, you can increment the value by 1 or 10 or decrease by 10. And the question was, how do you make it wider? And the way you make it wider is you go into the control properties for the integer value control, and you come down here to this value field inline style, and you change the width to your new value. So that's one way you can do it, and if we do that, change that, go back here into live preview, and now that's wider. But the other way you can do it is by changing the class, by adding a class here for the value field class name. And also, as a little note, if you're using the alpha style sheet, there's no dialog style button, it's just button, the class name of the button. That makes it a little bit more interesting.
Very big finger friendly.
Yeah, touch friendly.
Use the CSS and don't use the height and width
Yeah, don't
Well,
use these guys. You could,
They
I don't know.
don't work. All right.
They don't work. No. It would work if it was a list control, but it's not.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does that answer the question?
it does answer the question, and there is a follow-up question, which is, can an integer control be used somehow to increment a date field?
Interesting. That's cool.
I don't know. Let's try it. No, you can't.
Yeah.
It is called an integer value control. I don't
In
think
fairness,
it was intended
that's
for use
true.
with
Yeah,
anything
okay.
but integer values.
Yeah. So I guess you would have to do your own custom control for that. Great. Well, thanks very much, Sarah. I'm going to go back over to Dion. Let's see if we've got another question here. To the rest. Not seeing a lot of questions here, people. We've got 5 people.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
I could say.
I know.
Nobody wants that.
We do have a question that we didn't get to last time, and we did get to last time, but didn't figure it out. And I think we were delinquent in figuring it out this time, but it had to do with setting focus to an edit field on a control bar disclosure. So that will take a look.
That will go on our
that goes on the top of our list. Sorry about that for not getting to that, but we will look at it. And let's see if there's something else here. Someone suggested using a Julian date in a hidden field, and then you could use the integer to increase it and decrease the date. That would take a little playing with, but probably could work. And let's see what else we've got. All right, that's it. Now is the all right, so yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that because it looks like that's something that people would like to be able to do rather than a calendar control, have a plus button for dates. And is there anything else here? Oh, okay. We do. We have one last minute question. We should be able to get to it. Do you use cookies for saving data on the client side? And as a follow-up, can you show how to read and write cookies? So those are really 2 questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't done a lot of cookie stuff. Absolutely works. There are now, you kind of got to disclose that you're going to be putting cookies on people's sites. That I've noticed if you ever go to websites now, they let you know about that. But absolutely, we fully support it. And I believe it's in the request object. Alpha 5 request object cookie. Let's get and open this up real quick. Dun, 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 no. There we go. Create and read cookies. There we go. There's actually the context object, and see the context is it's right here. Okay, so how to create and read cookies. So if we can go ahead and put that one, I'll go ahead and put it into the. Did Sarah beat me to it, or?
Yes, I already beat you to it.
Ah, egads. But no, this will show you how to do it. It's the code is extremely simple. Basically, it's saying, it has a feature to say, does it have the cookie called cookie name? And you name the cookie, you give it whatever it is, then it does something. If not, then you use the get function to get the cookie name. And then creating cookie is all you have to do is you have to define this thing as a system web HTTP cookie, but then you just say set the value and then append the cookie, and boom, it's appended and done for you. So it's 3-4 lines of code. And so that's really handy, like on login screens. It can remember the person's, if they mark it, you could set a cookie to remember not their password, but their username, so they don't have to put that in every time. And then, cookies can be used for other stuff, but be wary, cookies are kind of considered a security issue. So I definitely wouldn't rely for anything critical that you may need, but to make your environment a little more user-friendly, you can use cookies as a way to handle that for the web browser on the other side. So, good
Excellent.
question.
Yeah, thanks very much for submitting that question just at the last minute too. And we are coming to the end of our session. So I want to thank you, Dion, for presenting, and Sarah. Thank you all who participated, showed up, asked questions. And next week at this time, we're going to be doing a special session which will involve the PumpJack Pro application. And that will involve basically showing you how to take down any of the projects from GitHub, and in particular PumpJack Pro, which is one of our projects on GitHub, and how to customize it, how to make it your own and borrow pieces and parts out of it. So that will be a sort of a hands-on session. So we hope to see you there. Until then, I hope you have a terrific week, and I hope to see you at future webinars. Take care, and goodbye.